I see a lot of similarities between me and Bruce.
So Bruce is the little brother. He's kind of
Yeah.
grown apart from the gang life. So he doesn't, at the start of the show, he doesn't even know that his family are gangsters. But he's kind of brought into the fold
He kind of gets roped into it.
with Charles's return. So he's just an everyday college student.
Yeah. I hate him.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Asian Blokes Podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, films, TV shows, comic books, anime, music, food, video games, whatever we're feeling at the time, really. My name is Dan with a H. With me, as always, is my co-host, Tavi. Hello, Tavi.
Hey, Jan. What's going on?
Not much, man. Getting ready for Taylor Mania.
Taylor Mania.
She's coming to my city, Tavi.
I already dealt with Taylor Mania over the weekend. Yeah.
Is it good?
It was... The city was in chaos. I was trying to get to the train. I had to go into the city, and then I was just trying to get to Flinders, and there was like a projection on the Flinders Street like entrance at the stairs. It was just like, you know, promoting the Eras tour, and I think by this time like the concert had probably already started or was about to start. So I'm waiting for the crossing, and I had like my headphones on, because I wasn't paying attention to like the lights, and then I realized that the lights had like turned green several times. It was just people loitering around taking photos of this projection of selfies. And then I'm like, fuck, all right, I'm gonna go. And then when I was paying attention, I'm trying to cut through, and it's just like, you know, when you are trying to cross Shibuya Station, and then there's like an influencer or whatever just standing in the middle trying to do shit, and you're trying to get through. This is what it felt like. It was just like so many people like trying to take selfies.
The real Hachiko crossing situation.
I was like, fuck, man. Like, I know you're excited, but, you know, just... I want to go home.
Just get the fuck out of the way.
I missed like my train by like, a minute. I was like, damn.
I can't wait, Tavi. Can't wait for it to come here. Yeah, it's going to be good.
It's pretty far from your joint, though, from your neck of the woods, so you won't hear it.
It's mercifully far. I reckon there will be people in the city, though, you know, probably doing the same kinds of stuff. But enough about Taylor. I think that's enough for us to merit a hashtag Taylor Swift.
Probably should have saved that for one of our K-pop episodes.
Bump up that SEO a little bit. No, today we are going to talk about Brother's Son, a drama now currently streaming on Netflix.
Yeah, a comedy drama according to Google.
Yeah, comedy drama, bit of action. But we will talk about that eventually. Before we do, shall we do our reoccurring segment, What Have We Been Watching? This is a segment of the show where we ask each other, what have we been watching? There will be time codes below if you want to skip ahead to the review of Brother's Son. What have you been watching?
All right. Well, what's something interesting that I've seen that is somewhat close to this show?
I can tell you what I've been watching, if that helps.
You watched Kill Boksoon.
That's
recently,
right. Yes, something that you've watched as well in the past, Kill Boksoon.
Yeah, I did. I watched it like about a year ago. Yeah, it was pretty good. It's very weird. Like, it wasn't really what I expected.
Okay.
It's got like that kind of Korean weirdness.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting something that left of field, I guess.
Like, what do you mean by left of field?
How do I explain it? From what I remember, it's just its vibe. It didn't really feel like I was watching an action film. Even though there were a number of action sequences in it, it kind of felt there's something very art house about it. Like, it was kind of slow paced a little bit.
Okay.
But there were action scenes that were sprinkled out throughout, but just the way the characters were kind of developed. I can't quite remember, but I remember watching it and just like, It was weird.
Yeah, they're a bunch of weirdos. The characters in it are weirder than your average action movie. Like, for those that haven't seen the film, it's on Netflix if you want to watch it. But essentially, the plot revolves around Boksoon, who is a assassin for hire. Well, she works for a company of assassins, but yeah, she's basically a trained killer. She's the best in her biz, but she's also trying to raise a daughter at the same time, so trying to keep her identity hidden from her daughter as well, and circumstances lead to that becoming difficult for her. So yeah, I mean, there's a kind of like aspects where it's like very kind of action thriller, but there's also that kind of almost comedic aspect of her trying to live with her daughter and keep her identity secret. So there's kind of like slice of life moments where she's trying to deal with her daughter's drama. The way they build the world of assassins is quite odd. I think, like you said, it's got that kind of off-kilter Korean vibe to it, where everybody is a little bit weird. Like she's got like this group of mates that she kind of hangs out with at this bar, and they're all assassins, but they act just like
normal people, like friends.
Almost like it's mundane to be like a killer. And there's like they talk about like a hierarchy similar to the kind of hierarchy you'd find in any kind of office. I remember that now. Office environment. They're kind of just trying to get ahead and scraping by in this world of assassins that has been kind of monopolized by this one big corporation almost. And it's quite funny, like at a point they kind of just turn on her, and like they're really chummy up to that point, but as soon as there's money involved they just turn on her at a dime.
It's pretty interesting. I remember watching that. It's like I wasn't sure how I felt about that, but it's kind of different whether or not, because you kind of like those guys, and then you're just like, oh, that's kind of sad that they're just like, we're going to kill you for money's sake. Yeah.
I found it really funny I found the movie pretty funny in general. I think that the actress that plays Boksoon, she does really well at this kind of almost like, she's pretty like world weary. She's kind of seen it all before, and she's a little bit fed up with everything that's going on. That, like, even when her mates turn on her, and it's you're led to believe they have like quite a long relationship. She's kind of like, oh fuck you guys, man. You guys are the worst.
It's kind of funny to think of the world of like. The world of assassins is just another job. It's just something that you can get bored and tired of, or another like ladder that you can climb.
Yeah, it's kind of like John Wick with some of the luster kind of stripped away from it, and it's a bit kind of like grimier, and everybo's a bit more rough around the edges, which I like. I like that Korean aesthetic of like just people spitting on the floor and doing the Asian squat outside of convenience stores.
It's not as much of a power fantasy as John Wick is. There's kind of almost a realism aspect to the characters themselves, I would say. Yeah.
It's kind of more like The Killer as well, which was on Netflix recently. Kind of like
it's a great movie,
the realistic side of being an assassin, where it's kind of like you're clocking in, clocking out. And you're actually not earning that much money kind of thing. So a bit less glamorous than something like a John Wick. But I just found it a really fun take on that type of film. I mean, if you're looking for straight up action, like the action set pieces are really good as well. I feel like they're quite inventive. She's kind of got like the Sherlock Holmes powers of foresight, where she can kind of see the outcomes of fights before they happen.
Before they happen. I think I can kind of remember that. It'd probably be something I have to watch again. My memory of that movie is a bit hazy. I just remember like my initial reaction to it was that this movie was weird, and that's a good thing because I like weird movies. It wasn't as straightforward as an action flick, maybe, let's say, compared to like Ballerina. Even though Ballerina was also like weird in its own right, it's still like quite simple, whereas like there's something a bit more to maybe like Kill Boksoon. But yeah, I think I just enjoyed Ballerina a bit more like as a film that I would rewatch like over Kill Boksoon. Yeah.
They're pretty similar in that the action kind of takes a backseat to other elements. But while Ballerina is kind of like very noir and moody, I think Boksoon is kind of more lighthearted and quirky. So
I think it's still quite noir, but I remember, it is a bit quirky in the end.
There's a bit at the very start of the film, she faces off against this Yakuza guy. And like she tells a story about how she was trying to instill in her daughter a sense of fair play. So she's like, all right, to be fair, I'll give you a weapon and we'll have a bit of a fight. And the guy's like, my katana was forged like centuries ago, made of Japanese steel. And she's like, oh yeah, I bought this for $20 at Walmart, this axe. And then they have a bit of a fight. She starts to kind of get on the back foot, and then she's like, oh, can I just change my weapon out real quick? Then she just shoots him in the chest. It's funny, man. It's good stuff. I enjoyed it. But anyway, shall we talk about some more Asian assassin-esque stuff?
Yeah.
So Brother's Son.
Brother's Son, yeah. Actually, well, before I start, like, do you want to give like a quick synopsis of The Brother's Son?
Sure. So this is an Asian American production starring Michelle Yeoh and others. But basically, it revolves around a family of triad members. So after an assassination attempt on his dad, the hardened triad enforcer Charles travels from Taiwan to America to protect his mother and little brother Bruce, who had been hiding from their previous life as one of the triad's strongest families. So they need to solve the mystery behind their dad's assassination in order to be able to return to their peaceful American life. So a little bit of mystery, a little bit of action, a little bit of family drama as well.
A little bit of comedy, a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of everything, a little bit of a party, a little bit of Crazy Rich Asians, a little bit of everything.
There's some references. We'll talk about the references. So we'll talk about this non-spoilers first, and we'll drop you a spoiler warning before we drop big spoilers.
I remember stumbling across the trailer for this show, and I was initially like really excited for this show. Because I was itching for kind of like an Asian American production that had like action, but that was a bit more like on the gritty side of things. Because
Tavi, I think you're forgetting Shang-Chi. We already received this.
That's what I
2
was
years
gonna
ago,
say.
Tavi.
With Shang-Chi was just in retrospect. The more I think about Shang-Chi, like, the worse it is. After the first hour of the movie, it just becomes like this really kind of just like, it's just...
Becomes a Marvel film.
It kind of pulls, it's Marvel. It pulls too many of its punches, and it's just like this really light assassin's tale. So when I heard about The Brother's Son, I knew it was about like gangsters and whatnot. But I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I remember, like, you know, it's got Michelle Yeoh in it. You said that the dudes that did the fight choreography did Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, a couple of them. Andy Lee and Brian Lee, Yeah,
it has I mean, I think I was least excited for the comedy elements of it because I know how these kind of comedy shows go. But I was like, you know, it looked cool. I was like, this is going to be like a pretty cool show. Like, it's going to be like a pretty like violent show. I mean, there was going to be like dismembering of a body that happens in like the first episode. You don't see it, but I'm like, that's pretty heavy for some kind of not a network television, a Netflix show that is kind of aimed for, I guess, a general audience, but it's kind of something that is kind of gritty. And the show, it looked all right. I did have that kind of, it has that kind of crisp Netflix look that I don't really, the clean Netflix look, but I was like, it's all right. I mean, it's probably got a lower budget than most shows. I thought this show looked cool. And then I watched the show eventually, and this show has a lot of elements that I like in an entertaining piece of Asian cinema or even just an action movie. I like Asian gangsters. I like kung fu. I like violence. I like that little bit of like kind of weird, quirky humor. Even in this show, I like the music as well. Most of the music, because a lot of the artists were actually like Asian artists that were part of the LA beat scene. Like, I think you've got like Toro Imwa, who's like half Filipino, half American.
Okay.
You had like Peggy Gao. You had Zoo. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But I really struggled to watch this show in a timely fashion. I was never excited to watch the next episode. But there were a lot of moments which I enjoyed. And there would be times where I was kind of like, oh, this is like actually pretty cool. Maybe the show is kicking up into a gear that it's gonna like win me over. But every time I would let it simmer for a bit, I would always be like very reluctant to like put on the next episode and watch it. So I watched this over like a span of a few weeks because I didn't really like the show that much. And I guess we can get into it a bit more, but like I just want to hear what your like initial impressions were, or just like your experience watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear. I don't hate this show. Look, I'm just looking at my notes now, and it seems like I hate the show because I have a lot of criticisms of the show.
You know what? I would say that too. I don't hate the show, and I would want people to watch it because I want this kind of like Asian American show, but I can't say that I liked it very much.
I think I think I've been overly critical of it just because I was disappointed by it. I think, like you said, there are so many elements to this that should work and should appeal to us specifically. Based on our own like cinematic taste. You know, we love stories about, you know, assassins and gangsters and even the family elements of it. Like it should work on us, right? And there are a lot of elements of the show I do like the fighting is the main one, obviously. I think that's where a lot of the work went into it. But even like some of the production design and the cinematography I felt is quite good, although a little bit inconsistent.
A little bit Netflixy,
When the show is good, it's excellent to watch. Like, there's some framing that is very deliberate and an obvious homage to Asian cinema. Like there are a few like really good mirror shots that kind of reminded me of like Wong Kar-wai or even like Kim Ji-won film or something like that.
And a lot of playing around with like the shadows and just like negative space and all that. There are definitely some really good shots. For sure.
There's a scene where Michelle Yeoh's character Mama-san is talking to her husband in a bathroom. And he's like kind of talking to her back, and she's like looking away from him but listening. And you can see kind of like their darkened reflections in the tiles of the bathroom. And like the shot is like a perfect visual metaphor for what's like happening between the two characters during that conversation. And even the way like their outfits kind of match the very specific bathroom tiles in the bathroom. It all feels very deliberate and well thought out. But like other times, the show just feels like any number of American sitcoms or movies. Like it's all kind of like medium close-ups for dialogue, generic outdoor settings, like really unpopulated world. It just kind of feels like conveyor belt filmmaking at times, which is a bit disappointing.
Well, we had some discussions about what you and I thought were the big problems for the show, and I think for me, it is the characters. I don't like anyone in this show.
Okay.
I don't hate anyone. I like Charles, but he's a little bit generic. I kind of liked Mama-san until a certain point in the show where I'm like, they're going to go this route, are they? Which we'll talk about in spoilers. But, well, there's Charles's, like, kind of ex-fling cop that he has. She's kind of just, like...
Alexis.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Alexis, she's fine, but underdeveloped. You have the sister of like this girl that was murdered like in a shootout because of this new shadow gang that's coming along.
Yeah.
And she's kind of trying to get revenge for her. But I'm specifically saving this character for last because he is like the protagonist, right?
Well, he's a point of
which is
view
Bruce.
character. Yeah.
Yeah,
Supposedly.
it's Bruce. Yeah,
Bruce.
So Bruce is the one that we are supposed to relate to. He's the one that is closest to us. And I see a lot of similarities between me and Bruce.
So Bruce is the little brother. He's kind of grown apart from the gang life. So he doesn't, at the start of the show, he doesn't even know that his family are gangsters. But he's kind of brought into the fold.
He kind of gets ripped into it.
With Charles's return. So he's just the everyday college student.
Yeah. I hate him.
Yeah.
I hated this character so much. Like, he was just so fucking boring to follow. He's just the most like passive character. I think the actor who plays him did a okay job. I think that's what the showrunners or the show was going for. But just the character is just, I mean, to hearken to one of the characters say a bit later in the show when they talk about Bruce, he's just a bit of a whiny bitch. And I just was not compelled to follow Bruce because he doesn't want to do anything, which kind of makes sense in a real life. I don't want to be involved in gangsters in real life. This is why I watch movies, you know? Like I go for the fantasy for escapism.
But it's not interesting to watch.
Yeah, exactly. It's not interesting. He's a guy that is a victim of tiger parenting to an extent, but he wants to be an artist. He wants to be an improv guy. And this improv storyline goes nowhere.
Well, it gets resolved almost instantly. when his mom is just like, yeah, you can do it. Yeah, fine.
Yeah. But I like the arc of how he wants to kind of bring the humanity a bit more out of Charles. But I just don't like his, I guess, his solution to the problems. Like, he doesn't do anything, and there's no fun in watching Bruce.
In theory, he should have the moral high ground because he's like, and this is no shade to the acting in the show. I think all the actors in this show are kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing. But like him as a character, he should have the moral high ground. He can't fight, but he has other qualities. He's like supposed to be smart, I guess, except when he's being a fucking idiot. But he also has heart. So like at face value, it's not a bad angle. Like he can be the voice of reason among this group of insane murderers. But he undermines like that position so often in the show by making just the dumbest decisions that actually hurt his family in the short term and long term. Yeah, so
it's the writing really crashes in the second half of the series, and it's like what? Like you're like a grad student, and I get being under a high pressure situation. You might not make the best decisions, but also you're kind of writing a piece of entertainment as well, you know? So you want him to make some good decisions, and it's just like, but the plot is not even like one of my biggest problems as well. It is the humor, which I'm kind of glad that they laid off a bit in the second half, because the humor in this show, it's the typical like American style humor that I don't like, where it's kind of the idea of not letting you feel the emotion in the moment. It's saying something stupid to cut the tension.
Sure.
And I don't want to be the guy that just shits on like American stuff and Asian American stuff, because I do like, you know, American movies. Like I've been watching a lot more like recently, but just this style of writing, humor.
It's a bit forced.
It's a bit forced. It's a bit like sitcom-y. And I think that's when you said, to preface the show, where you said it's a bit of everything, which is the problem. It's trying to be too much. Whereas like at its core, it is an action drama. And the action is good in the show.
Shall we
I
talk
like
about the
fight
action?
scenes.
Shall
I
we
think
talk about something positive? Let's sprinkle it in
the action
here.
Scenes, I think the action scenes are quite good.
Yeah.
They're long takes, they're wide takes. The choreography is good. There's a few burly brawls in there. My favorite action scene, and I think you probably know, is when like Charles loses his shit and he just kills a bunch of guys at a golf club. Yeah, that was really cool.
Kind of
I
filmed
really
to look
enjoyed
like
that.
one take kind of situation.
That was fun to watch.
Any fight that takes place in a restaurant, that's always fun to watch as well.
Yeah. The fight with the guys in the dinosaur suits was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And like I kind of liked how they kind of lent on that little bit of absurd like madness a little bit. Like I like that in Asian cinema where it kind of gets a little bit absurd.
Yeah, and you can really feel that in like Everything Everywhere All at Once as well. So I'm like, you can tell that the fights are where they put most of the effort in, because they basically they assembled a crack team of stunt coordinators. So this is including Brian and Andy Lee, who previously did Everything Everywhere All at Once with Michelle Yeoh, but also includes stunt performer David Wilneau, who's Melbourne's own David Wilneau. He's famous for movies like The Grey Man and June. Also 71-year-old stunt coordinator James Liu, who's worked on a lot of things in Hollywood, from like The Matrix to Inception. They even got one of like Hiroyuki Sanada's main stunt doubles.
Really? Okay, I didn't know any of this.
So they had like a lot of people working on the action, and it shows. It's definitely the strongest point. And if there was more action in the show, I probably could have forgiven
a bit
more of the weakest aspect, which is definitely the writing. And like the writing as well, there are good aspects to it. Like the showrunner, a guy named Byron Wu, so this is kind of his brainchild. He gathered a writing room made up predominantly of Asian writers, right? So there's a lot of effort put into things like, for example, like the Taiwanese slang that they use is kind of era and region appropriate. Like any scene that involves food, they nail it. I think Asian cinema in general, just anything with food looks good.
Anything with food looks good.
And some of the family elements, like you said, Bruce and Charles's relationship feels pretty organic, and their motivations to kind of help each other. They come about pretty authentically, I think. But I have a feeling, and this might be incorrect, but like you might have a great idea going into a show, but then along the way, there are things that might be changed. And I think it is kind of like a level of trying to please a wider audience. I'm talking about studio interference.
I think I know where you're coming from.
Studio interference, I can't confirm that, but it does feel like they had a vision, but then this vision has kind of been watered down to an extent. And a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily necessary has been added to the show.
You said to me like that it was trying to go for the ABG crowd as what's that, the Asian baby girl crowd, or the people that like Crazy Rich Asians, and also like
which is a lot of people, in fairness. It's like almost every Asian person except us.
So like, I don't know either, because there were definitely aspects where there was very hand-holdy like writing.
Oh man, there's a bit where it's in one of the earlier episodes where Michelle Yeoh's character is investigating like an apartment, right? And then this guy, this hitman comes in. He's got like a scarred face, right? And he's got a corner.
yeah.
And then she kind of like creates a scene and makes him run away. And then the same guy reappears later on in the episode at like a crime scene, and he's dressed as a cop. And there's kind of like a slow pan to his face, his scarred face that is very easily recognizable.
Yeah.
And me and my partner who were watching it were like, oh, that's the guy. And before we could finish the sentence, there's like a quick flashback to earlier on in the same episode where it shows like who exactly that guy is. And I'm like, and we just cracked up because like, dude, we know,
it's really obvious.
We know who it is. You don't need to hold our hand this much. Like, it's in the same episode.
Like, we say that, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely people out there.
Nah, man.
No, I reckon there are some people that are that dumb. I think they're broadening the show so much that they need to incorporate that people aren't gonna get it.
I don't know, man. Like they gave a musical cue. They did the slow reveal. Like that's enough, I think, for most people.
Nah,
I think it's just a matter of like they just don't trust their audience's intelligence enough, I think, at times.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious in how much like dialogue is just repeated over and over again to kind of just explain to the audience these characters' motivations and even what is happening at any given time. Sometimes there'll just be like dialogue that is just saying what's happening in the show, and like we can see it. We can connect dots. It's fine. You don't need to add this like irreverent dialogue. I don't know. A lot of the time it's just like let's skip this. Let's maybe make some more room for some awesome fight scenes, I reckon.
There was some more action because, like the action is great, but then it kind of starts to become a bit few and far between because then we have to like follow Bruce's boring ass life. You know, it's just like, man, have your plot be a bit less convoluted. Like Bruce's character can work. I mean, you just need to write him better, you know.
You need to get him to do more stuff.
Yeah, get him to do stuff. Get him to not be like on the moral high ground all the time. Let him make a choice where he might have to kill someone, you know.
I mean, he makes some pretty bad choices in this show, Darby. Like,
But there's too many characters that are trying to have an arc, but there's just not enough time for them.
But it's also like the same arc. All of the main characters, they're just battling identity. And that's like another thing that I don't really like about this show. It is telling the same story of like...
Is it another like immigrant story?
Basically, it's like, I want to be who I am, but I also want to be true to my roots. Like, we get it, you know? Like,
we get it. Like,
we've seen it.
I was having a chat with Boone the other day about this, and I generally like those movies, you know, like The Farewell and Minari, you know, these Asian American productions about like finding who you are and your roots and the conflict of identity. But I think there's more stories for us to tell, But let's just like, I think this kind of story, I'm kind of getting a little bit over. I'm just like, it's fine. Like, I'm watching The Brother's Son. I'm watching an action thriller, you know?
Yeah.
Make the show more tense. Take out some of the characters and have less episodes, if you will.
Just more focus, I think.
More focus, lose a lot of focus. Yeah. It's a very like American sentiment. Like, I want to be who I want to be. And like, no one can really hold me back because I want to be an improv guy. Yeah, like make it work. Don't have him like, you made the team, and then some guy is like, oh my god, he's got to come and tell me off, and then that's it. That's all becomes of it. You know?
It would be fine, I think, if it was just Bruce. But every single character has the same thing going on. Like
Charles is like he's got his baking thing.
Yeah, he wants to bake, but he also wants to give honor to his family. Sure, like. Mama San even, she wants to be a good mum, but also she wants to do murders and crime. Alexis wants to be a good investigative assistant DA, but she's also in love with Charles or whatever. Like,
and who's a Korean juggy friend wants to be a good friend or something.
He wants to be a gangster and a good friend. Like, I think this show feels a bit like Shang-Chi in that it does have a pretty strong premise and a pretty strong vision, but it also seems to be trapped by a formula that it has to adhere to. Like in the case of Shang-Chi, they were kind of bound by the Disney/MCU formula, so it couldn't be too violent, it had to tie into other properties and had to have an origin story, had to have quips, had to have a third act that involves blue lasers or whatever. But
and a big world-ending disaster.
In the case of Brother Sun, they seem to be bound by a formula of like just Asian American media in general, like your Fresh Off the Boats or your Kim's Convenience or your Crazy Rich Asians. Like you got to cram as many Asian references as you can into the show while constantly reminding the audience that the show's identity is also American. Like you got to love dim sum, but you also got to love In-N-Out Burger or whatever the fuck, you know? There's a lot of product placement in this show, Tavi. I don't know if you noticed.
There is. It's
like no shade to those shows, but they are a product of their time. Like Crazy Rich Asians was produced in a time where Asian American identity was still being established in American media. So at the time, it was a pretty important story to tell, even if it's not a great movie in our opinion. But that's a 6-year-old movie at this point. Like and since then we've been kind of flooded with so many shows and movies that explore that same tired concept, like your Turning Reds or your Joyrides or whatever. Like like that sentiment of how can I stay true to my roots and honor my family, but also be who I want to be.
Like my Western self.
Like it's fine. You just can. You can do it. Everybody does it now. You know?
Everyone, like, we're still alive, you know. We're still we just do it. It's fine, you know. Like we're not that insecure about it. Like, I mean, we go to eat Asian food when. But we can eat pasta. I made spaghetti before.
My dad loves In-N-Out Burger. It's fine. You can do it. It's not that hard these days. But I think you're right. I think it's probably time to tell a different story. I think like having them just focus on a balls to the walls action comedy about triads and assassin would have been so much better. Like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but it's Asian and it's awesome, you know? That would have been that would have been enough. That would have been great.
There is like some pretty. I mean, we live in a world where like Beef had come out, where that is a predominantly Asian American featured show, but it's not really concerned about forcing its like identity of like, oh, I'm this and that. But the way that I was watching some of it the other day. And the way the characters talk about like the stuff they do feels a lot more organic. Just like, like when I think Stephen Ewan's character is always like talking about like white women and how they're kind of like the bane or how they're kind of like sly and evil. I mean, I know people who kind of talk like that pretty normally. So it feels a bit more organic, but. Somehow in The Brother's Son, it has, as you said, it has that kind of Turning Red issue, which I actually thought a lot about Turning Red as a form of like how I would explain the criticism for this show. It kind of feels it wants to really establish that I'm Asian, but I'm also American. As you were saying before.
It's a bit pandering. Like I think the difference between this and Beef is that the Beef characters in Beef feel real. They feel like real people. And like I think that comes down to just the intricacies of the characters and the attention to detail. Like this, I think if this show was a bit more focused, they could have spent a bit more time, like just getting the nuance of that's another thing. There's no nuance in this show, but you just getting the nuance of these characters, right? Like for example, the use of language in this show is wildly inconsistent. Like, and I'm not even close to being Chinese, but for me it was pretty distracting. Like, none of the Taiwanese gangsters sound Taiwanese. Like Michelle Yeoh. She's a great actress and capable of many accents, but her Mandarin does not sound Taiwanese in this show. I think like Charles, he's doing a good job. Like he's throwing in Taiwanese, Hokkien, and like some other dialogues. So it's evidence that there's at least somebody on set that has a background in these languages and gets kind of the nuance of it. So like, I don't know, get that guy to do a bit more work and maybe like do a bit of dialect coaching. Maybe that's too much to expect of a Netflix production, but like if you're going to tell a story about Taiwanese gangsters, maybe put in the effort to give your dialogue a bit more authenticity. Because if the characters are authentic, people will naturally resonate with them. Like, you don't need to shove a bunch of references in our faces to
Yeah.
I don't know,
I mean, was that a big criticism of the show? Because I know that there was some like Asian American dramas where they were portraying like Taiwanese people, but the actors were like mainland Chinese and didn't have the accent. My Mandarin is nowhere near good enough to tell the difference. But yeah,
it's always going to be a criticism of these kinds of shows because it's hard. There's so many fucking Asian languages, and there's so many accents and dialects within those Asian languages to kind of make it possible to nail. But like even like there's a bit where Michelle Yeoh goes back home and talks to her mum, and the conversation's entirely in Cantonese, even though they're supposed to be from Taiwan. And I guess maybe they could have come from other places. Maybe her mum's from Hong Kong or whatever. But like, I don't know. And like, it's there's just something not quite right, and just kind of a lack of attention to detail that feels like everything is kind of surface level in this show.
Well, are we in the minority? Because the thing is, a lot of people seem to like this show online. It has a pretty high positive reception.
Like I said, I don't hate it. It sounds like I hate it, but I want to be very clear. I don't hate it. I'm just disappointed by it, and I think that's why I'm being overly harsh on it. I know I'm being overly harsh. Like, but I feel like this show had so much promise, and I mean, like I said, it's crowd pleasing. Like, they're going for crowd pleasing, so I'm not surprised that the overall reception is positive. Because like it's like the Rotten Tomatoes meter, like if the way the Rotten Tomatoes meter works, and everybody knows this, but if people feel like the show is okay, then that's a fresh rating.
It's positive,
So
well, sometimes they give it a rotten rating. I remember seeing some movies that were rated 3 out of 5, but then the rating was counted as rotten. I'm like, what? Like, does it make sense?
Whatever.
So
it's fucked. The Rotten Tomato meters is fucked. But I mean, my point is like, this show is fine. It's okay. Like, the writing severely lets it down, but even then, it's fine. It's okay. But I feel like it could have been great.
I wish this show, like, I really would have loved to like be in this episode and be like the same reaction that we had to Beef and Everything All at Once, like supremely positive, glowing review of it. I really love it when like an Asian American centric production does this, because it's like, yes, it's prospects for me, because obviously I want to represent that kind of nature of our society, because there's not that many movies about it, unless it's I'm struggling, and sometimes I fall into that trap myself where I write something where like a character is thinking this, and it's like, wait a minute, am I just doing this story again? And then I change it. I get like kind of pressured out of it because I kind of I'm over this kind of story, to be honest. I'll acknowledge if it's good or not when I watch like a good one, but it's still kind of like I mean, it is what it is. But I just couldn't love this show, unfortunately. I just really struggled to watch it, and I wish there was a bit more like criticism from its general audience to it, because if this was super popular as it is, then it's like, oh well, we don't need to change anything. We just do the same stuff. Whether or not
it's going to be another One Piece situation.
Where, well, I don't know if there's going to be a season 2, because the story like wraps itself up pretty like neatly. I was surprised.
We'll talk about it in spoilers probably, but it might. It probably will, because I think it's fairly popular, and
I think this show was pretty successful for like what it is. So I'm hoping that they try a little bit harder with the character. Like, give Bruce that kind of that Godfather kind of storyline where he doesn't really want to, but then he's kind of forced into it. and then maybe a darker side comes out of him, you know, rather than just like, I'm just a little bitch for the whole fucking 8 episodes, you know?
Yeah. I think I would just like to see maybe just a singular vision come to you know, the forefront. Like rather, because it does feel very much like a product that's been made by committee.
So I think so,
Yeah, I don't know, like maybe just stay true to your vision, Byron. Like, put your foot down, man.
Maybe.
But yeah, I don't hate it. Like I said, I like everybody involved in the show. I like you know, the performances in it. It's just I don't know, like lacks a bit of focus for me and is a bit disappointing. Yeah. Should we talk spoilers?
All right. Should we talk spoilers?
So the bad guys.
They're this shadow organization who are revealed to be the Boxers.
Yeah.
And they're basically, you find out they're just a group of younger people.
Boy, it
Gen
really,
Zers, if you will.
really takes the threat out of them when they're revealed to be like just a bunch of young hipsters, like a youth group essentially.
I was just like, and especially when you find out who their leader is, which I was just like, oh my god, you serious? When I found out who the leader was,
I was confused because I knew she was going to betray them at some point and be a part of this group. She alludes to it a bit by telling her parents' backstory.
There's one point, that just was so unsubtle when it's like, how did your parents die? Oh, you know, they
were killed by gangsters, you know.
And it's just like, oh, gee. But she ends up being like, she's just the leader all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, I thought she was just like a plant. But then Bruce, I found out who the leader was, and it was my girlfriend. And I had a big problem with this aspect of the storyline because this is basically Bruce's like first love, right? Mm-hmm. You know, to him anyway, and maybe to her because she says, when she reveals herself, I actually did have feelings for you.
Yeah.
So when there's the reveal, and which leads to her eventual death, I guess, like I feel like there should be a bit more weight or more gravitas to both of these characters, but it's just like, nah, that happened.
It's weird. It's weird how like glib about the whole thing he is.
Yeah, and I'm just like, man. And this is a big problem with the plot. Yeah, it's just brushed aside. Yeah,
I think the episode before this, the Boxers like murder a character named Blood Boots, right? And like, Bruce has kind of just met this guy, but there've been a few scenes where they kind of develop a bond. So when Bruce sees like Blood Boots' dead body, he's pretty torn up about it. Like the emotional impact of Bruce seeing the corpse is pretty good. Like, even though it is a guy that he's just met. But then it's kind of followed up by like, this reveal that Grace, a girl that he likes and has spent many more scenes with in the course of the show, it turns out she's been playing him all along. And she's like the head of this group that is trying to kill his family. He's just so like blasé about it. It's just like,
I think they were just moving the plot forward. And it's just like, because I like the character of Grace.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Blood Boots, but I think I like Blood Boots because he's got that visual appeal. Like he's kind of the bigger, bold, friendly, like fat guy who's good at fighting. And like people generally find those characters quite warm.
It's got a delightfully British accent. I quite like that. Yeah.
I kind of like when Grace subtly reveals that she's the leader, you know, when she's like, oh yeah, my parents were killed by gangsters. Oh gee, I wonder if you're going to betray Bruce later. Yeah. But I don't know. I kind of was hoping that she wouldn't. I thought that maybe they would subvert the expectation and she is actually just going to be his girlfriend for the whole time, you know? And then for like to have Bruce have something to hold on to.
Or maybe just be even like a little bit conflicted about it. Like she does say that she has feelings for him, but like
she says it, but
at the same time,
she's pretty much immediately
she's just evil.
Like denies it.
She's a bad guy. She's just a generic evil person. And to the point where like in the climax, the other girl, like June, is like, I'm gonna kill your girlfriend if I see her. And Bruce is just like, Okay, yeah, you do what you gotta do, man.
Yeah. And that's the kind of the comedy side of it, and it's just like, I think,
like, you're not even going to try
honestly,
to calm her down or advocate the parts of non-violence. Like, isn't that your whole point, Bruce? Is you don't want people to get killed?
I mean, the whole idea of him leading to that is the way that I'm going to protect my family is tell the people who want to kill my family where the fucking meeting is being held.
Makes no
I'm like,
sense.
come on. I mean, come on, Bruce. Come on, writers. Like, come on. It's so just like, just like, man. And that wasn't even the thing that, like, it was one of the big plot points which made me, like, check out of, like, the plot. But Mama-san's plot arc, I think, is terrible as well. Like,
You mean the fact that she wants to be a good wife, but then she just wants to be a
she
triad
just
leader?
wants to be a gangster.
I like that.
And like, why?
I
didn't like it. I don't feel like there was any build up to it.
She's
it's
a
just
person,
like,
Tavi. She's got her own individual hopes and dreams. She's not just a mum, you know?
No, she's not. But like, she just like changes so suddenly, and it's just it feels like such an American style of writing where it's like, I want to give Michelle Yeoh a girl boss moment.
I don't know if it was that sudden, because there are hints throughout the show where she's actually loving the situation. You know, like from the get-go, she's chopping up bodies with like a smile on her face. She's just very matter of fact about it. She's like, she takes pride in like how easily she can get information from people, and you know, she's always like even when she confronts the boxers, she seems to be having a pretty good time. So like her turn as like, I'm gonna make a play to become the Dragon King or whatever. I'm like, I mean, that's I like her little outburst at Bruce when she's like, nobody asked me what I wanted. I want to be a gangster. I'm like,
It sounds like it sounds a little bit like Precious, to be honest. The whole nobody asked what I wanted. It sounds pretty American, if you ask me. Like the whole kind of me kind of thing. And it's fine to tell that kind of story if you want to. I just thought, I didn't think the build-up was good enough for Michelle Yeoh to just suddenly snap. Because, you know,
it is a bit
when
abrupt.
she's doing all that stuff, like, it seems like the whole point of the show is that maybe she wanted that normal life, but she can't brush it off. That's just what she's good at, you know?
Yeah.
But then it kind of turns into, no, I just kind of want to have been like a gangster the whole time. Whether or not, and this might be, maybe the show wasn't clear enough. It was too subtle about it, maybe, which we're talking about a show that didn't have nuance. So maybe I wasn't paying enough attention to that. But that's the thing, like, because you're focused on so many other stories that I think for me, this kind of just flew by my head, and it just seemed like, I don't know. And then, like, the dad is just suddenly, I mean, it kind of showed that he was a little bit ruthless at the start, because just from the way, you know, he kind of carried his swagger, but then he is just kind of out and out jerk for the whole. Like, he's just, they needed an antagonist, and it just had to be the dad. Because of course it is, you know. It couldn't have already been the boxers which you were setting up. It had to be like the patriarchal figure of the family. You know? And it's just like, man, let's just have a sensual, just a cool sensual villain, which we'll probably talk about in another episode of another show. But it's just like, it's, I don't know, it just didn't feel like it built up to him
a bit too convenient,
to be a villain.
I think. You know, like, I
You've
see
got
what
the
you
boxers, man. And the fact, I think they shot themselves in the foot where you find out the boxers are just like a bunch of kids. It's like, really?
It's very,
kids?
very
It's
underwhelming.
It is. And then they're dealt with. Like, that's it. They're done. There's no more boxers.
I don't even know what happens to that, like, the Scar guy who they kind of build up a little bit. Like, he just disappears. I think he gets a bunch of like bulldog shoved in his face, and then he just disappears from the show.
The I like those things, actually.
First of all, stop it there. Nobody eats bulldog like that. No. I agree with her cop buddy. Like, you're gonna get just spicy powder everywhere. It's bad.
That is true, but that bulldog flavor is actually the one that you eat like that.
Is it? Okay,
but
I've never seen
yeah,
that.
we ate it for one of our K-pop
Oh,
episodes.
yeah.
I gave it to you, and I said, yeah. So you eat it dry, and then I get people do eat that, but I've never seen anyone on the walk eating noodle those ones. But no, people do eat like dry noodles like that.
Sure.
But
It's her thing.
Yeah.
It's her character's thing.
it's her thing. Yeah. But then she just doesn't do it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, because they were building it up for that moment where she shoves it in the guy's face. That's all it was
I guess
for.
So. Yeah.
But yeah, Bruce betrays his family twice in this show.
Yeah. Far out, man.
He gives
That's
up the
bad.
list of triad leaders that his mum entrusts to him immediately upon being
Because she
captured.
knew, yeah. So you see what I mean? Like, why would I want to follow Bruce? Like, he betrays his family twice. And you want me to like this guy? This is who we're following? Someone who betrays the family?
Yeah. No, it just his motivation makes no sense. Like you said, he wants to free his family from a life of crime by putting them in direct danger. It's dumb. Like, if you don't want to do crime, Bruce, just don't. Like, you're bad at it anyway. Like, why are you putting your family in direct danger just to get them out of the lives that they've chosen? It makes no sense.
Well, I guess his reasoning or his thought was, well, Charles is a really good fighter, so I'm just going to assume that he'll make it out alive if I tell him where this fucking, where my family's being held. And it's just, I don't know. I didn't like Bruce. I mean, the aspects of Bruce that I did enjoy, the scenes, were like the more humanistic ones where he's just they're at John Cho's house, and he's just hanging with Charles.
Yeah.
I didn't mind those scenes that didn't have action, but the point is that they were developing like a bond. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty simple plot line, but at least it's simple. It makes sense. It's a little bit compelling.
Yeah. And even his interactions with Grace, earlier in the show, they're pretty cute.
I like those. That's why I was like a bit sad when they just turned Grace into basically a nobody character. She's just bad now, and then just threw her aside. Because I quite like Grace. Just that kind of aspect of him just being like a normal kid who likes girls, But she's just a bad person. So the story is don't trust Asian women, I guess. Is that what the movie is trying to say?
Oh yeah.
And even
obviously.
one of the lackeys, the chick with the eye patch, who spends like pretty much most of the show protecting Michelle Yeoh and the family
the lady with the straight hair. I don't think she has an eye patch, Talvi. I think you're misremembering her with an eye patch for some reason.
the one with
the one with blood boots, right? Blood boots is maybe. Yeah. No, she doesn't have an eye patch.
Yeah. I don't know why. Why did I think she had an eye patch?
Maybe it's the haircut.
Yeah.
Maybe the haircut makes it seem like she would have an eye patch.
Like her character was kind of interesting as well. Like it seemed like she'd spent a lot of time with the character, and then she just turns on them without much like thought. Like it kind of weighs on her a little bit, but it doesn't focus on it enough. Where she just I
wanted to talk about that fight a bit.
Yeah.
So what do you think about getting Michelle Yeoh on your show and not really using her to do a fight?
Yeah, it's something I thought about because Michelle Yeoh's in it, but she doesn't really have a choreographed fight scene.
There are points where you think she might do some fighting. Like the bit I talked about earlier where she's cornered in an apartment by the scarred assassin. And you think there's going to be a big fight scene, but then she kind of uses her brain instead and screams for help, causing the guy to flee. So like the fact that they've done that kind of makes it seem like, oh, maybe they're building up to like a big fight scene with Michelle Yeoh, Or maybe her character just doesn't know how to fight. But the fight scene that we get with her is in a motel room against this female kind of hitman enforcer type that you've talked about, the one that doesn't have an eye patch. So like basically her husband sends his female assassin to take out Bruce, but instead she finds Mama Sun in the hotel room. So I like the idea of Michelle Yeoh's character not using the same balletic kung fu that we've seen throughout the show. Because like narratively, she's probably only learned how to fight after she moved to America with Bruce, in order to protect him. So like I like the idea that she would have a different style of fighting, and that fight scene would not play out like the same as the typical Asian martial arts fights that we've seen so far in the show. But maybe something more like you'd see in a Born Identity film, like a bit scrappy or frenetic and like violent with a lot of kind of like destructible environment as well. But I think this is maybe the only fight scene in the show that's kind of let down by like just the construction of it. Like, first of all, there's not enough destruction in that fight scene. They're in a hotel room. There's shitloads of stuff that they can break through, but they don't really do any of that. Secondly, the choreography is not impactful, and the way that it's shot doesn't really sell any of the impact. Like it just feels like clumsy grappling at a point. And this character, that she's fighting has already been established as like an extremely good martial artist.
Good fighter. Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
But in this fight scene, she's just trying to choke her, right?
I'd agree with that as well, because you see her kill a number of people like quite easily in those like big fight scenes, and then Mama Sun, who you said is kind of established to not be the balletic fighter that Michelle Yeoh is usually known for, but then she just suddenly starts struggling. And
even the way she's killed doesn't really make sense. Like Mama Sun like wraps a phone cord around her neck and then jumps on the other side of the bed and kind of chokes her out. But like if that girl just rolled backwards in that situation, she would have been fine. And I'm sure she can do a backward roll. I can do a backward roll. So, and I'm not an expert martial artist. I don't know. It's just a bit.
Yeah, and then they kind of like say some like quippy lines about her corpse or something. And it's just like, I don't know. It's a little bit disrespectful to the character. It's just like, I actually kind of, it's funny, these kind of I grew attached more to these side characters than I did to like the leads that they were focusing on. Like I didn't find Alexis's story compelling. She was basically a means to have pressure on Charles. I thought Charles's journey, out of the 4 characters, Charles's journey was probably the one I found the most enjoyable.
I like Charles.
He's the one that has the most fight scenes.
I like how he's a badass, but he was also kind of got weird older sibling energy. My only issue with Charles is that, one, nothing that he has freshly baked ever looks hot. Like he's taking stuff directly out of the oven, and people are just grabbing them with their bare hands and shoving them in their mouths. And secondly, he's a baking enthusiast, but he doesn't know what a churro is. Come on, like they have churros in Taiwan.
I actually agree with that. Like I wasn't sure about the churro thing. It's like, surely you know what a churro is.
If you enjoy baking, you gotta know what a churro is. I don't care where you're from. He's watching the British Bake Off at the start of the show, Tommy.
It's true. That's very true. Yeah.
God.
So it doesn't make sense. I like the idea of him being a really good baker. I think that's an interesting quirk, and I think I've seen it done it in some animes, but I don't know. It kind of seemed not like it was tacked on, but it just
inconsistent.
Was not that thought out. Inconsistent. Yeah, like I think when there was a bit where he said, I learnt it because I used to watch Grandma and stuff all the time. At the time, I thought, maybe that's a good, but it would actually have just been funny if he just like, I just like baking because it's fun to do. Like I was bored one day and then I just started baking because, for whatever reason. because I think that seems to be like the trait that they're going for, where Charles is like a badass killer, but oh my god, he loves baking and he loves like bad CW type shows on TV or something.
Yeah.
And Liz is like, oh yeah,
It's fun character quirks. I don't think you need a backstory for them. But yeah, I guess if you want to tie everything to family, you gotta put in that backstory.
We're talking about how the show ends. So Grace gets killed. Michelle Yeoh. Well, no, Bruce like shoots his dad.
Yep.
And then Michelle Yeoh like threatens his dad in the hospital or something, and he's just like, okay, I guess I won't go after the family
I think she
anymore.
condemns him to a life of being an invalid. Like she adjusts his chart so that they think he's a diabetic, so he keeps getting constant insulin injections to the point where he can't speak or move. But I don't think that would work realistically for very long anyway.
Someone at the hospital will be like, what the, something's going on here. I
don't know. It is the American healthcare system, Tavi, so I don't know.
Charles kills his friends. The dude bros
his
from
mates.
Taiwan.
Yep.
Like, who are just seemingly super American for some reason.
Oh, it's the Lee,
it's the
Lee brothers, Tavi, so that's a bit of fun, isn't it?
And then, he gets to be a baker.
Briefly.
And Bruce gets to just do what he wants, right? Yeah.
It's a sweet Lambo.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Doesn't even do improv. I guess the improv life is over for Bruce.
Yeah, I guess so. And Charles is only a baker very briefly. He goes back to his life of crime. Like, he accompanies mother-son back to Taiwan at the end of the show.
I didn't remember, because I think when I was watching it, like, I checked out and I, like, started cooking.
It's weird. Like, they're wrapping up the last episode of the show, and, like, there's a montage of what the characters are up to. And Charles has, like, a scene where he's kind of, like, baking, and it looks like he's in a store, so maybe he's, like, opened up a bakery. But then...
Yeah, I think I remember that,
it cuts to the end where they're boarding an airplane, and Charles gives Bruce, like, a box of donuts or something as a farewell gift. So, like...
Yeah.
Has he packed up his shop? Did he open a shop briefly and then close down his shop to become a gangster again? Like, it's very odd, and I feel like that is just there to set up a season 2.
It's a sequel, season 2. Yeah, there probably will be a season 2, but I'm not that excited.
There's a mid-credit scene as well, if you remember.
Yeah, what happens in that one? I think I did stick it out because I was just so confused at how the story had wrapped up. And like, there must be a mid-credits scene, but I don't remember what happened.
So basically, somebody is on the phone and they're having a conversation about the case against the triads. And they're basically like, without this guy's testimony, they don't really have a case. So let's take this guy out. They're talking about like one of the uncle characters.
Okay.
And then you see who's talking on the phone, and it's Big Son's right-hand man, which you see like at the start of the show and a couple of scenes within the show. So I guess like Big Son's right-hand man is going to take over the criminal enterprise instead of Mama-san. He's going to be like a rival to Mama-san, I guess. Yeah, whatever. Maybe that'll happen.
Maybe, yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing a season 2 of this.
I'll probably watch it because I do want to support these kind of shows.
Yeah.
But I'm not excited for it. Should I say? Yeah. If it's there, I'll probably watch it to see if they have improved on like some of the criticisms that we have for the show, or if they have more fighting.
Yeah.
Because the fighting is cool. Yeah. But I don't know.
It's not enough of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I have any more to say about this show.
Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up for me. I don't hate the show. I would tell people to watch it because I do want to see more of this kind of stuff come out from the Asian American perspective. But I can't say that I really liked the show. I think it's okay. I just think it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I have similar feelings to when I finished watching the One Piece live action. I feel like
it's
okay, but like we can do better. and we should do better. Like, we should aim to do better. I think this is not a stopping point where we should be satisfied with what we got. Like, because it's not a perfect show, and there are not many perfect shows. So
for sure.
I just make some small adjustments to improve it for season 2, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah. But no, I think that's it, man.
All right, guys, what did you think about Brother Sun? Did you have similar criticisms as us, or did you kind of just have a really good time with it? Which is fine. Yeah, it's good. If you had a good time. I'm glad, even though it doesn't sound like I'm glad. I'm happy for you.
I was going to say, like, are you really glad?
Nah, anything can be good, guys. You let us know. You can get in touch with us at twoasianblokes@gmail.com. You can join our Facebook group to be part of the conversation. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at twoasianblokes to see what we're up to. If you're going to go see Taylor, be safe. I'm hearing a lot of irresponsible behavior coming from that realm. So just be safe, guys. Enjoy media responsibly. That was a weird ending.
That was a weird ending. Yeah. And we'll leave it weird, just like the show did.
Because we're trying to please everybody, Tubby.
Yeah, no, man. Just get to the point. Just say goodbye and fuck off.
All right. Bye.
See you guys.